Welcome back. Today, we're diving into welfare economics to explore consumer and producer surplus. Have you ever wondered what the true benefit you get from a purchase is? Or how much profit sellers really make? Let's find out. We'll cover consumer surplus, producer surplus, and market efficiency, looking at how markets allocate resources. Here is a quick question. When you buy a coffee for $3, but you are willing to pay $5, what's your gain? That $2 difference is what we call consumer surplus. Similarly, if a seller can produce the coffee for just $1 but sells it for $3, their gain is producer surplus. Together, these two concepts measure the total economic well-being that markets create. But the big question is, does the free market equilibrium actually maximize this total welfare? The short answer is usually yes, but there are important exceptions. This chapter builds on our previous lessons about supply, demand, and equilibrium, but now we'll add a welfare perspective. We'll use these economic tools to evaluate whether market outcomes are truly good for society. So, let's start with the beer side, consumer surplus. Consumer surplus is simply the gap between what you're willing to pay for something and what you actually pay. It's your personal gain as a beer. Your willingness to pay measures how much you value a good as the absolute maximum price you'd accept. For example, imagine Taylor is willing to pay $100 for a rare album. If the seller charges $80, Taylor's consumer surplus is $20. The demand curve is directly connected to consumer surplus. The height of the demand curve at any quantity shows the willingness to pay of the marginal beer. Therefore, the area under the demand curve and above the market price represents the total consumer surplus for all buyers in the market. When the price falls, consumer surplus rises in two ways. Existing buyers pay less, which increases their individual surplus, and new buyers enter the market because the price is now below their willingness to pay. Think about it this way. If the price of your daily coffee drops from $4 to $2, you might buy more and your surplus grows. Consumer surplus is highly dependent on the market price. Competitive markets with low prices tend to generate higher consumer surplus. On the other hand, monopolies can charge high prices, leading to lower consumer surplus for the very same product. In essence, consumer surplus reflects how satisfied buyers are with a deal. A high surplus means buyers feel like they got a bargain. It's important to note, however, that consumer surplus measures a monetary benefit, not necessarily overall happiness. For most normal goods, it's a great reflection of economic benefit. But for something like a harmful drug, a person might have a high willingness to pay, creating a large consumer surplus, but society wouldn't view that as a positive outcome. Let's take an example from Indonesia. Street food like bubur ayam or satay is delicious, cheap, and widely available. Consumers often get a very high surplus from these meals because their willingness to pay is much higher than the actual price. You might get less consumer surplus from a fancy restaurant meal, even if you pay more, because the price is closer to your maximum willingness to pay. Government policies have a big impact on consumer surplus. Taxes increase prices, which lowers consumer surplus. Subsidies, on the other hand, lower prices and raise it. When we evaluate policies, we often ask, did this make buyers better off? For instance, rent control can raise the surplus for existing tenants by capping prices, but it can also create housing shortages, reducing surplus for those searching for a new place to live. The net effect on society can be complicated. When a policy is being considered, we have to weigh whether the surplus lost by one group is justified by the surplus gained elsewhere. Now, let's flip the coin and look at the seller's side with producer surplus. Producer surplus is the mirror image of consumer surplus. It's the seller's gain from a sale. It's the difference between the price they receive and their cost of production. This cost represents their willingness to sell or the minimum price they'd accept. For example, if a painter named Andy is willing to do a job for $500 and you pay him $600, Andy's producer surplus is $100. The supply curve illustrates this perfectly. The height of the supply curve reflects the producer's cost. So, the area above the supply curve but below the market price equals the total producer surplus for all sellers. When the market price rises, producer surplus increases in two ways. Existing sellers get more money for each unit they sell, and new, higher-cost sellers can now enter the market profitably. For example, if the price of rice in Indonesia rises from 8,000 to 12,000 rupiah per kilogram, farmers are incentivized to plant more rice. Their surplus grows from both higher prices on their existing crop and from the new production. Producer surplus depends heavily on market prices. Monopolies, which can set high prices, often enjoy large producer surplus. In contrast, highly competitive markets tend to have lower prices, which limits producer surplus. Consider Indonesia's oil companies. When global oil prices are high, they earn a massive producer surplus. But when those prices collapse, their surplus shrinks dramatically, even though they're putting in the same effort to extract the oil. The farming sector is also very sensitive. A coffee farmer's surplus is heavily dependent on volatile global coffee prices. Government policies often aim to influence producer surplus. For instance, price supports for rice can protect farmers' surplus and ensure they earn a decent income. However, this often means higher prices for consumers. There are trade-offs everywhere. Helping sellers usually means higher prices for buyers, and helping buyers means lower revenue for sellers. In Indonesia, protecting local textile producers with tariffs raises their surplus, but it makes clothes more expensive for consumers. Finding the right balance between consumer and producer welfare is a constant challenge for policymakers. So, now that we understand both sides, let's put them together and ask, what makes a market efficient? Total surplus is the sum of consumer surplus and producer surplus. It measures the total economic benefit a market generates for society. An efficient allocation is one that maximizes this total surplus. It means the market produces the right quantity of a good and allocates it to the right people. Imagine a benevolent social planner whose only goal is to make everyone as well off as possible. What would they do? The surprising answer is, they would aim for the free market equilibrium. Why? Because at equilibrium, the value of the good to the marginal beer is exactly equal to the cost for the marginal seller. The free market achieves three key things. First, it ensures that goods go to the buyers who value them the most as measured by their willingness to pay. Second, it allocates production to the sellers who can produce at the lowest cost. Third, it produces the exact quantity that maximizes total surplus. If output were lower, we'd miss out on trades where buyers value the good more than it costs to make. If output were higher, we'd be making goods that cost more to produce than buyers are willing to pay. This is the invisible hand at work. Individuals acting in their own self-interest, buyers seeking bargains, and sellers seeking profits are guided toward an outcome that is efficient for society as a whole. No central planner is needed. Consider Indonesia's vast rice market with millions of farmers and consumers. The price mechanism balances supply and demand, maximizing total surplus without any government master plan. This is why free markets are so powerful. However, there's a big caveat. This works perfectly only under conditions of perfect competition. Many real-world markets are not perfect. Market failures occur when markets fail to allocate resources efficiently. The two main types are market power and externalities. Market power arises when a single firm, like a monopoly, can control the price. They typically restrict output and charge higher prices, which reduces total surplus. Externalities are costs or benefits that affect third parties who are not part of the transaction. Pollution is a classic example. A factory might produce goods efficiently from its own perspective, but the pollution it creates imposes health costs on the surrounding community. Since the factory doesn't pay for this external cost, it ends up producing more than the socially optimal amount. Climate change is the ultimate externality. These market failures suggest that government intervention, like regulation or taxes, can sometimes improve efficiency. But government can also fail, and poorly designed policies can make things even worse. Let's apply these concepts. When a market is inefficient, the lost surplus is called a deadweight loss. Taxes, for example, create a deadweight loss because they drive a wedge between the price buyers pay and the price sellers receive, preventing some mutually beneficial trades from happening. The size of this loss increases exponentially with the tax rate. Doubling a tax can quadruple the deadweight loss. This is a critical insight for tax policy. Very high tax rates can destroy so much economic activity that they actually lead to lower tax revenue, an idea captured by the Laffer curve. Price ceilings and price floors also create deadweight loss by preventing the market from reaching equilibrium, leading to shortages or surpluses. Rent control is a price ceiling. While it may benefit current tenants, it often leads to shortages and a decline in housing quality, creating a loss for society overall. A minimum wage is a price floor for labor. It can raise the surplus for workers who keep their jobs, but if it leads to unemployment, those who lose their jobs suffer a complete loss of surplus. The key takeaway is that nearly all economic policies have both efficiency effects and distributional effects. They change the size of the total economic pie and how it's sliced. A deep understanding of both is essential for designing policies that truly maximize our collective well-being. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe for more.